The number that I see the most strength in is the number 4 for my co-presenters. That Jessica talked about finding your joy in your work and your people, and I'm going to talk about finding my people to teach my students. Sarah talked about making a long-term difference and making a difference that you won't see the results of, and that's totally the theme of my project. And more directly, I am going to do my temperature project that I haven't done in years because it gets so depressing about our rising temperature. And I feel way more confident about doing this because I can talk about how students can be change makers. Josh talked about careful attention to kids and following where they are and trying to figure out how to help them and being explicit about how you care for them. And when Ursula was talking, I thought about a student once said about another teacher that she throws your heart out at you. And that's a lot of my talk and a lot of what we do is to throw our heart out at the students that we have. So here I start. My cousin, Dr. Jean Whitney, was a professor of special education at the University of Southern Maine. She died of colon cancer this summer after a long battle. She was my very first friend. Our mothers, there we are, being friends at the very beginning. Our mothers were not just sister-in-laws, but also best friends. And you can see here, there's my mom, who's I think here, and there's me, there's Jean. And you can see Jean looks just like my mom and followed my mom into academia. And I stayed obviously in teaching. Many of Jean's students who are now teachers spoke at her funeral, and her best friend, Catherine Stewart, who's a math teacher like me, talked about the ripples you make as a teacher, especially as a teacher of teachers. I thought about how some of these ripples we know about, and most of the important ones we don't. We never get to see a lot of the impact we make on our students. I know Jean knew she made an impact on the teachers who spoke at her funeral. She was close to them, they came to her house, but she also made an impact on many other teachers, me for one. At Jean's funeral at the end of August, I thought about the power of ritual. Jean had a gift for creating practices. I've read and tried to live by the rule that a good teacher creates rituals, but also breaks them. My classes have Fun Thursday, this was one of them, where they get one challenging problem and then time to explore it alone and then in groups, and also a little time to catch up on missing work. It may not sound like that much fun, but there's candy involved and I keep saying it's fun, so they kind of believe me. They also have Exit Slip Friday, or once in a while, where every week I give a short exit slip / quiz. The kids say, why don't you have Fun Friday? Because that's alliterative. But my calculus teacher, Mr. Benson, had quizzes on Friday, and it's great to bring them all home, think about what the kids learned, how I can tweak stuff. So I don't change it too much. But every once in a while, I do switch it up. Rituals organize us. As a teacher, I know where particular lessons go because they're going to belong in Fun Thursday or TED Talk Tuesday. These practices are one of the ripples whose effects I can't see the long term of, but I know they create the environment of my classroom that lets all the other waves of learning begin. I love when kids call me out on missing a ritual or police other kids around one. Put your notes away. It's Exit Slip Friday. And I know that means I made a custom that they want to carry on. For whatever reason, the do now, aim, turn and talk rituals someone else made up don't do it for me now that I'm 30 years in. The rituals I make up with my classes, our in-jokes, and the way we talk to each other makes a family, not just a classroom. What allows a teacher to create those waves of real growth and not just mastery of algorithms? One of the things are the rituals that create a community and an organizational system. Another thing is an affinity for your particular students, and also persistent caring expectations and scaffolding to meet them. You need to pay attention to pedagogy. You need to focus on teaching and on the students that you're teaching, not on the Danielson rubrics and DESA scores that are all around. I wanted a chance to think about all these. I often say that I love teaching math. I do. I like explaining how to solve quadratic equations and helping kids figure out what mathematical methods work best for them. But I also love teenagers as people. I like how they ask the big questions. I remember a conversation with the class about why people smell different from each other, and we ended up talking about whether or not there is a God. You don't get there with second graders, and you definitely don't get there with adults. Adults already decided what the answers are, and they're not asking the big questions. I love middle schoolers and elementary kids. My mom's here, and she always says fourth graders are the best, and they are. but teenagers are the ones for me. Jean taught severely disabled students and found out that same affinity with them. One of the tasks in creating the waves of learning is finding the right water to swim in. So often you don't know where the ripples end up. For 3 years in Costa Rica at a tiny school, I had many of the same kids for the whole time I was there. One of the students was extremely reluctant to do any work on paper, and it took more than a year of asking him every day, where's your homework? Where's your homework? Where's your homework? Before I got any. And then it took another semester to really get him to passing and understanding the class. I often think about the fact if I just had him for 1 year, I would have thought that the next year's teacher was more effective than me and got them to do their homework. I would never have realized that it took more than a year of pressure to get someone to change. Just yesterday, my own personal child went to the library to do their work. And that was after 18 years of suggesting that lying in your bed is not the best place to do your work. So sometimes it takes a long time and a lot of persistence to make the change that you want to make. And you're lucky if you get to see it. As a teacher, you do formative and summative assessments about the material you're teaching right at that moment. But the real things you want to teach, curiosity, self-assessment, discipline, those take years to create, and you can't assess them with the thumbs up, thumbs down, the test, the exit slip, and you might not even know that you're creating them. When Jean became a professor, she got involved in the politics of being chairperson, getting tenure, being full professor. College departmental infighting is no joke and can be pretty brutal. The chair is only a slight exaggeration. When she was diagnosed, she finally stopped worrying about the University of Southern Maine politics and focused on the students she loved and her own amazing kids, they're in this picture, Archer and Rosie, and on the incredibly beautiful pottery and felting and other crafts she created, including all the beautiful photographs you've been looking at during this talk. I think if there's one takeaway from the last 5 years of her life, it's that you should not wait to get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer to focus on what really matters. Family, work, the real work. And in teaching, that's the students and the curriculum. It's not departmental politics and creativity. You don't know where the waves are going and you can't control them. You can only focus on the people around you and acknowledge their humanity and the ways that they are intelligent and creative and hope the waves are out there. A teacher's greatest influence is in results you'll rarely see. Ripples are a great metaphor for me to get me through the days of teaching when I don't have evidence of reaching my students, and I just have faith that my teaching will last past the end of the year. In recent years, I've had to be way more genuine as my students and I had to struggle with killings with no consequence, from Columbine to Sandy Hook to Pulse to El Paso, and from Eric Gardner to Sandra Bland to Elijah McClain to George Floyd. It's amazing how much I could have added to both those lists just in the last month since I wrote this. I can't pretend to be neutral in front of my kids anymore. Students want to be seen, and by looking and listening to them, I'm forced to throw out or stick to rituals that I would think I'm in control of. So many times last year in my virtual classes, I paused for the question of the day, a silly or serious question, usually not related to math, when I thought we were on a roll, but the kids needed to stop and pause. Other days, I skipped it when I felt like I needed a break, but the kids were on a roll. I had to follow the kids where they were. Teacher education, at least when I was educated 30 years ago, did not address any of this. How do I create the rituals that make my weeks have a structure? How do I know when to throw the practices out the window and be spontaneous? How do I motivate myself when I won't see my most important results? How will I know which students I'm meant to teach? How do I manage being part of a system that I don't always believe in and doesn't value my input? I know Jean addressed these issues in her classes, and her students definitely appreciated it. These questions are the ripples that should go through any valuable professional development or teacher education. My cousin Jean, and pretty much all my cousins, love the Grateful Dead. To quote from their song Ripple, would you hear my voice come through the music? Would you hold it near as if it were your own? We will never know who hears our voice. Thank you.